feel I'm on top again, baby. That's got everything to do with you. I'm alive. I'm so alive. I'm alive. I'm so alive.
The Motocross of Nations will consist of 3 30-minute motos plus 2 laps. The first of which will be the 125s and 500s. This year there will be 22 3-man teams, which 2 of those riders will compete in each moto. In the 125 class on a Honda from Canyon Country, California, Mike Kwiatkowski. And on the 500 from San Juan Capistrano, California, and his 6th time on the team, Jeff Ward. Another American rider in this year's event, but not riding for the U.S., is Trampas Parker. Parker from Shreveport, Louisiana, is riding a 500 KTM for the Italian team. Who is Trampas Parker? Well, he's a young rider that had a dream of being world champion and made it come true. Trampas Parker is the first American to win the 125cc World Championship. As I mentioned a minute ago, there are 22 teams with 2 riders from each team in each moto. And this will be a 2-row start with the second rider starting behind his own teammate. In Moto number 1, most teams have elected to start the 500s in the front. However, a couple of teams have to start the 125s in front in hopes to getting their rider out ahead of the other 125 riders off the start. The 30-second card is up, it gets turned to 5 seconds, and all eyes go on the gate. As the gate goes down, Ward gets a little sideways, comes out about 6th, but going into the first turn, it's number 73 Latcher and number 40 Lease. Ward sneaks around, takes 3rd, but not for long. This time it's around the outside again, but taking over the number 1 spot. As Ward takes the lead, Honda-mounted number 40, Jeff Lease, falls to 2nd, and number 73, Dietmar Latcher, settles for 3rd. As the riders come over the plateau on the front side of the track for the first time, it's Ward. But in second, it's Dave Thorpe of Great Britain, wasting no time going from 5th to 2nd on the first lap. Thorpe, the 1989 500cc world champion, is on the gas and looking to win Moto number 1. But I don't think that's what Ward has in mind. Back in 3rd, it's Lease. In 4th, it's Latcher. In 5th, Peter Hansen from Sweden. Ward gives it all he has to shake Thorpe, but no dice. In fact, Thorpe has appeared to have closed a couple of bike links. While the battle goes on for first, it's still a tight one for 3rd between Lease and Latcher. In 5th, it's Hansen. 6th, it's Martins. And in 7th, it's Conquest. But what about the 125s, and where's Mike Kwiatkowski? Well, the first 125 is number 24, Demara, and then Morrison, then Vervoets, then Dobbs, then Van Dorn, then Dick, and in 7th place for the USA, Mike Kwiatkowski. While the battles continue for the top spots, let's hear what Ward and Stanton had to say earlier today about the choice for the 125 class.
No, I feel that Mike can ride him just as well as Rick or Ronnie or myself. He's a new up-and-coming rider, but he's riding really well. It was a wise pick for them to pick Mike, and just for the fact that Honda had a bike ready, and Mike was right up there in the point standings for the 125 championship. So I think it's a wise decision. Mike's a really good rider. I'm totally confident with him.
Yeah, he's really young, but he's an excellent rider, and he's proved that he can come through the pack from a bad start. 125 in this race, that's what it takes. He's won a few nationals this year, and he looks real strong. He can do the job, no problem.
While Ward continues to lead the first moto with Thorpe hot on his heels, number 73 Latcher has moved into third, dropping Leach to fourth. Peter Hansen from Sweden on the KTM holds down fifth. Jeff Ward, winner of the first two 500cc nationals in the U.S., is showing the world that he was the right pick for the 500, riding a flawless race. But he still can't seem to shake the 500 world champion from Great Britain. Everyone seems to have settled in their positions in the 500 class, at least for the time being. So what's happened to our boy Mike on the 125? Well, the leader is still number 24, Patrick Demaria on the KTM from France. Demaria has dominated since the start of the Moto with only 500cc bikes to race with. However, there is no advantage to beat the 500s, only to finish top 125. But what's this? Mike Kwiatkowski has moved into third and right on number 6, Barvoets from Belgium. While Thorpe works on Ward and Kwiatkowski works to get past Barvoets, let's hear from Roy Jensen, the head of professional racing, on how Kwiatkowski was picked for the 125s on this year's team.
The way that we got to our team selection came as a procession of changes. Obviously, our first team that was announced was Ricky Johnson on the 125, Jeff Stanton on the 250, and Jeff Ward on the 500. At Millville, Rick Johnson was injured when he fell off in the first moto. Rick did try to ride at Washougal, had some difficulty both with some overall physical fitness problems and a problem with an injured sternum to where he was having difficulty breathing and he was very uncomfortable. At that point, we proposed to name our original alternate, which was Ron Lachine. Ron declined the offer to compete on the 125. At that point, it really came down to a logistical decision where we had already made preparations to send a Honda. We had Honda spares already. Our initial choice at that time was George Holland, based on his performance this year of having won 3 nationals during 1989 and being our 125 #1 plate holder. George has been experiencing some difficulty as a result of shoulder surgery last year, declined also to participate. At that point, we simply chose Mike Kwiatkowski.
Ward, the veteran on the team, continues to show Dave Thorpe the way around the hard-packed, high-speed Geldorf track. Ward, no doubt, is riding beautifully, as is Thorpe, but he can't seem to put any distance between himself and the British rider. Kwiatkowski, showing he was a good choice for the 125 class, has come from the back of the pack and 8th place in the 125 class to do battle with the leader, number 24, Patrick Demaria of France. If Demaria is not aware that Mike is there, he's going to know shortly. And now he knows. Demaria appears to have gone a little wide, clipped a hay bale, and Kwiatkowski takes over.
Every year, it becomes more difficult to keep the record going, you know. Sometimes I think, especially in the States, people think that we just come over here and it's just automatically that all we have to do is appear and win. And it's not that easy. And outdoor tracks, the Europeans are still pretty fast. And I saw some of the races at the end of the season, and Dave Thorpe has been very fast at the end of the season. I think Gabos is not bad still, and there's a few other riders that are fast, but I expect Thorpe to be very fast today or this weekend on this track.
Well, it looks like Roger knew what he was talking about. Dave Thorpe was hanging tough, giving Ward no chance to make a mistake. But you have to wonder, how hard is Ward pushing? We need 4 good moto finishes and no DNFs. I guess in racing, only the rider in first place will know how hard he really had to push. As we get down to the closing laps, Ward shows 40,000 fans in West Germany why he has number 1 on his bike. And not only has the USA shown for the last 8 years why they are number 1, but they are on the way to making it 9 in a row with a little luck. And Ward comments on that and the pressures involved.
Well, I think the first time was the most pressure for me, since it wasn't my first time on the team, and we hadn't won it for, you know, as many years as we wanted to keep it going. Now there's just as much pressure, I think, but since I've been on the team, I feel really comfortable with, you know, our ability and how it's gone in the past. And the only fear I think we have is fear of something going wrong that doesn't pertain to our racing skills.
Ward cruises down the last straightaway and around the final turn to the checker flag to give the USA 1 point toward first place in the 1989 Motocross of Nations. Ward finishes first in the 500 class, Thorpe second, Leeskin third, while in the 125 class it's Kodrowski, Van Dorn, and then DeMaria. So after one moto, the USA has 2 points, England 8, Belgium 10, Italy, Germany, and Australia 12. Moto 2 will be the 125s and 250s. This will be the second and last moto of the day for Kodrowski on the 125s. And for Jeff Stanton, it will be the first of 2 motos on the 250 class. At the Motocross of Nations, each country has their own staging area that is located right behind the start, where they must be 10 minutes before the start of each moto. If the bikes are not in the staging area on time, they will not be allowed to ride that moto. The way the riders are picked to go to the line is by a drawing to see what country goes to the line in what order. The second rider will have to line up directly behind his own teammate. The American team has 6 picked to the line, and Jeff Stanton takes a last-minute look at the start line to be sure everything is just the way that he likes it. Another American rider in the Motocross of Nations is Billy Lyles. Lyles is riding for Luxembourg on a 250 Kawasaki. Lyles is racing in Europe under a Luxembourg license which allows him to ride for that country. Stanton, while waiting for a call to the starting line, takes a minute to stretch and loosen up. It's very important to be as loose and relaxed as possible, not only during the race, but before as well. Physical and mental attitudes is very important for a good performance, and many professional athletes use their minds to visually prepare for the event. Seeing is believing. See the start, see the race the way you want it to happen, then make it happen. And while we're waiting to see it happen in Moto number 2, let's hear from Roy Jensen, assistant team manager, on how the decision was made on who starts in the back row.
Well, the decision really is made collectively by Roger DeCoster and the riders. We'll rely a great deal on Jeff Ward because of his experience. Jeff's been here a number of times at Motocross of Nations, and he's been here with the modern format of the 2-row start. Jeff has the knowledge to share with the other riders just how the best way to go about that. It will be determined just before we go to the line, and part of the strategy is to look at how the other teams are putting their riders. You know, should someone change near the line to where a 500 or a 125 is reversed, it might change our decision, but we'll probably set in before we go out there to the line and lock into the way we're going to do it.
With the 30-second card up, everyone is anxiously awaiting the start of Moto number 2 to see if the United States can wrap up another Motocross of Nations in the first 2 motos. The 5-second card is turned and all focus goes on the gate, and the adrenaline reaches peak. As the gate falls, it's a 44-rider drag race to the first turn. Crossing over to take the whole shot is number 74, Roland DePaul from West Germany. In second is number 2, Jeff Stanton from the United States, and in third, number 8, John Vanderbeek from the Netherlands. And the West German fans go crazy as the homeboy leads Moto number 2. But not for long. Jeff Stanton wastes no time playing follow the leader as he cuts to the inside and takes over the number 1 spot. As the riders jump the plateau on the front side of the track for the first time, it's still Honda-mounted Jeff Stanton, followed by number 74, DePaul, number 8, John Vanderbeek, number 53, Kovar, and number 11, Pekka Vakkonen. Earlier in the week, there was some talk around town as to whether we had brought the strongest team to the Nations this year. Everyone knew about Jeff Ward and had seen him perform in the past, but what about this Jeff Stanton? How good is he? Well, he's good enough to win the 1989 Camel Supercross Series and the 250 National Championship. Okay, well, what about this Mike Kodrowski? Well, Mike is currently running second in the 125 Outdoor Nationals. He won the East versus West 125 Camel Supercross Shootout, plus showed in Moto number 1 that he can do the job. As Stanton comes around to complete lap number 2, the battle for second is heating up between number 74, DePaul, number 8, Vanderbeek, and number 11, Vakkonen. But well back in the pack, and running 6th, 125, is Mike Kodrowski. Stanton appears to have things going his way in the early part of this moto with a very controlled power on this hard-packed, slippery track. While the race was going on for second spot, another 250 rider, number 20 on a Kawasaki, Billy Lyles, is caught up to try and do battle for that number 2 position. Kodrowski is trying to gain ground on the front runners in the 125 class, but can't seem to make any progress in the early part of this moto after a not-so-good start from the second row. After 5 laps, Stanton has stretched his lead out, but the story is the race for second for the valuable team points. Beckenen has moved into second. Vanderberg holds third. DePaul runs fourth, while Lyles has moved to a close fifth. As the pack of 250s pass, we start looking for the 125s. The first 125 comes around in 14th, and it's number 9 Van Dorn, followed by 75 Ott, then 24 DeMara, and moving up to fourth 125 is Kwiatkowski. It looks as though Jeff Stanton from Sherwood, Michigan is looking to add another title to his list of credentials. And behind him, the hard-fought battle for second continues. And a close call for number 44, Ross Peterson, and number 3, Kwiatkowski, when the KTM of Patrick DeMaria loses traction and goes down, moving Mike up another spot to third. After the first moto, I talked with Mike about this hard-packed, slick track.
And especially on this slippery of a track, a guy comes out and he slides, and he takes this guy, and this guy gets squirrely. You know, it's like a chain reaction, so you kind of got to watch. But, you know, once it gets lined up, it's pretty good.
Kwiatkowski has now gotten past number 44, Ross Peterson, and now there is only the 250 of number 53, Peter Kovar, separating the two 125 riders. And with only one lap to go, Kwiatkowski passes Kovar and Ott and moves up to the rear wheel of number 74, Roland DePaul. Over the last jump and into the final turn, Jeff Stanton heads for the checker flag, winning the first 250 moto and adding only one more point to our total. And in second, Billy Lyles, and in third, John Vanderbeek. Putting in a good ride after a terrible start, Mike finishes second, 125 to Puzar. And in third was Harold Ott. So the USA, after two motos, clinches the championship again. For the rest, going into moto number 3, it looks like this. For Italy, 17 points. For Germany, 22 points. England has 24 points. Belgium, 25 points. And Sweden, 26 points. For the USA, they can still end up winning with a perfect score by getting another first in the third moto. The third and final moto will be the 250s and 500s. The American team has locked up the championship, but the rest of the positions are still up for grabs. At this point, Italy is looking pretty good with 17 points, and with one good ride in the 250 or 500 class, they could lock up second. But it's a tight race from third to sixth. There's only 5 points difference in a race like this. Anything can happen. Although the U.S. team has wrapped it up in the first two motos, the riders still take the third moto very seriously. The fact is that we could not even ride the last moto and still win. But that's not the way it's done. When you're a racer and you're a winner, you always do the best you can to the end. I can assure you that both our riders would like to finish it off with a 1-2 finish. However, they are not going to take any unnecessary chances at this point in the game, especially with the 500 series still going on in the States, and both of these riders are in contention for the championship. Both Ward and Stanton try to stay as loose and relaxed as possible while awaiting the start of the moto. And as you can see, the riders are feeling pretty good about going into the last moto, knowing that the real pressure is off. The 5-second card is up and moto number 3 is about to get underway. As the gate drops, it looks like number 73 Latcher from West Germany gets the jump out of the gate, followed by number 40 Leask and number 19 Martins. Latcher swings a little wide and hangs the inside with Ward right on his rear wheel, and right behind Ward from row 2 is Stanton. Martin's number 19 grabs the lead on a 500 KTM in the early part of the moto, with number 2 Jeff Stanton on a 250 in second. Number 40 Leask runs third, number 73 Latcher runs fourth, and number 1 Jeff Ward is fifth. As they go off the downhill jump and down the front straight, Ward takes an inside line to pass Latcher and moves into fourth. Meanwhile, Dave Thorpe, number 58, the 1989 500 world champ, has moved up to sixth, followed by number 28, Trampas Parker, the new 125 world champion, riding a 500 KTM for the Italian team. From eighth on back is number 29, Fenton, another Italian rider, number 65, Johnson from Sweden, number 53, Kovar from Czechoslovakia, number 8, Vanderbeek from the Netherlands, number 64, Hansen from Sweden, and back in 19th is Billy Lyles from the USA riding for Luxembourg. As they come around to complete lap number 2, it's still number 19, Jackie Martins on a 500, followed closely by number 2, Honda-mounted Jeff Stanton on a 250. Earlier today, I asked Stanton which he thought would be easier to ride on this track.
I would have to say probably a 250. 500 might, it just depends on how smooth you are with the throttle. You got to be real smooth with the throttle and roll it on all the corners because it is so slick.
Well, it looks like Jeff decided to show how much easier it is to ride a 250 around this Geldorf track, or he just decided he'd had enough of the roost from that 500. It's easy to see how important throttle control is as the 500s try to be aggressive on this hard pack off camber. While Stanton runs out front on the 250, the battle for the 500 class heats up. Number 58, Dave Thorpe, runs second. Number 19, Jackie Martins, runs third. Number 40, Jeff Leask, runs fourth. Number 73, Dietmar Latcher, runs fifth. And number 28, Trampus Parker, runs sixth. But what happened to number 1, Jeff Ward? Well, something happened on the back side of the track out of our sight. And after the moto, I asked Jeff what happened because we couldn't see it.
Good. No need to see it on TV. I just it got really slippery. It was a lot more slippery than the first moto, and I got on the gas real early and went sideways and high-sided, and it threw me on my head and just kind of stemmed me for a little bit.
Even after the crash, when Jeff got up and going, he still was within striking distance after losing a lot of ground to the front runner. Ward was still 7th 500. No, Jeff wasn't going to give up, but what was there to gain? Why take unnecessary chances when we already have won the overall? Stanton continues to dominate Moto number 2, but Dave Thorpe stays close in hopes of a mistake, just as he did in Moto number 1 behind Ward. No, there is no advantage as far as points for Thorpe to win this moto, but he sure would like to see the Americans behind him. Just when it looked like we were going to see a race up front, Stanton stretches it out, making it obvious that he can get the 250 around the track a little faster than the 500s. Thorpe drops back a little bit, but what's this? Trampus Parker, the unknown American, has moved up to third and right on Thorpe. For most of the year, we have been reading about this American rider almost dominating the 125 World Championship. And now, for the first time on a 500, he has come from 8th place and caught Thorpe over the plateau jump well ahead of the field. And the battle continues for second between Thorpe and Parker. And Ward tries to work his way back to the front of the pack. While all this is going on, let's hear from Roger DeCoster, the team manager that has the job of putting all this together for the U.S. team. I asked him how much longer he would like to be team manager.
I'd like to do another year because at least another year, and then I don't know, then I'll think about it. That would give me 10 years, and I hope we can win those 10 years. That would equal the record that I have to be 10 years in a row on a winning team as a rider then, but I'd like to equal this as a being involved with our American team.
Trampus Parker holds the inside as tight as possible in every turn, trying to pick up a bike length or even a foot on Thorpe, trying to get that number 1 spot in the 500 class, while number 73, Dietmar Latcher from West Germany, holds on to the number 3 spot, keeping number 65, Peter Johnson, in 4th and 2nd 250. While number 23, Janning Carvella, is the 3rd 250 rider. Well, Jeff Ward is certainly having his share of problems with this moto, but let's hear what winning the Motocross of Nations means to him.
Well, it means a lot, for myself and plus for, the country. They back us up 100% when we're over there racing, and it feels really good to come over here and beat the world and go back with this championship. So I take it really seriously.
No doubt he does, as do all the riders that go to the Motocross of Nations. I know for a fact because I've been involved with the team for the last 7 years, and they do take it serious. I know that winning this race is important to the riders as it is to win the Supercross or the national title. And now that we have won it so many times, it gets a little harder because no one wants to be on the team if we lose. With only 5 laps remaining in this moto, Stanton continues to make it look easy, but the race for second is the one to watch between Parker and Thorpe. However, even if Parker passes Thorpe, it will not change the final team standings for the overall. He has tied it up with 4 points, Italy with 11 points, England with 15 points, Luxembourg with 16 points, Germany with 17 points, and France with 19 points. And so the team of Jeff Ward, Kawasaki, Jeff Stanton, Honda, and Mike Podrowski, Honda, once again show the world that the USA is number 1. Now let's join the top 3 teams on the victory platform.
ich jetzt um die Nationalhymne der Vereinigten Staaten bitten.
Hier sind sie, die Weltmeister, hier als World Champion. Und da ist der Teammanager, Jose Costa. Zum 9. Male Weltmeister.